this. Look at the pickup. Look at the turn. Oh, that was brilliant, Luke Bruce. Lewis runs into the open goal. Thank you very much. The Hawks are back in town. And he finishes more. He can with his fourth. He's had a day out. Scrimshaw, past the seas, went for home and nails it. He'll just set it up, looking for the high flyers. And Sicily soaring through the sky for Warpino to finish it all off.
Welcome, one and all, to this very special edition of Hawk Talkback. Mid-season draft edition, that's all it is. There's nothing else going on for Hawthorn at the moment. I'm still waiting on Tiz, incidentally. Oh, there he is. Hello.
Let's go.
We're off to a cracking start. Can you tell it's been a little while since we last did Hawk Talkback? But here we are, and thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. As I said, mid-season draft. Obviously, not much else going on with Hawthorn at the moment. It is all about mid-season draft. We've already got Patrick, who requested to speak, and now he's declined to speak, and it's all happening. Tiz, let me steady the ship for one moment. There's a lot to talk about, but I want to focus on the news that had just come through about our picks in the mid-season draft. How are we feeling?
Oh, well, it's sort of underlined to me that Sammy feels that he's got the bones of a next premiership side almost cut and dried. He's taken a ruckman to, bulk up our thinning ruck stocks, and then he's taken a 25-year-old key forward to allow development of Cozzy or people underneath him, I guess.
Not in replacement of Cozzy? Papers not stamped quite yet?
I wouldn't say that after his game on the weekend.
Oh, come on. One goal has completely revitalised his career, has it?
It's just what it meant to him, I guess. I've seen other blokes come back from worse situations than Cozzy. But, it's still tough.
I would love for you to be right. I think I need to see a little more before I get on that train.
Yeah, that's fair enough. What did you think, Nick? You must have been wrapped.
Because I've been calling for a key position forward for quite a number of months. I'm happy with our selections. I mean, let's start with Clay Tucker, obviously taking a pick 3.
Another Eastern Rangers boy.
Yeah, we do like our Eastern Rangers products. And given that Max Lynch is sidelined, it makes sense. We need a little bit of depth there. We need some flexibility, some insurance, because as we learned last year, we learned it the hard way. If you don't have ruck insurance and have enough players on the list that can play that role, the worst can happen. You can feel it quite harshly. So I'm glad that we have Clay Tucker as a development prospect at 18 years old in the back pocket. If we seriously need to play him, we can. I want to welcome Tim to the program. Tim, do we have you?
Is that better? Sorry.
Yeah,
that's all good.
Evening,
off you go.
I wanted to start with something positive, given there's a lot of negative stuff about the Hawks. If the PCM was given halfway through the season, who would be your top 3?
I don't want to pander to Tiz, but I got to say, I would like to say Nash would be number 1. It's got to be midfield, doesn't it? Like 1, 2, and 3.
Nash, Newcomb, Day, Sicily. It's all those guys.
Yeah. I think it's pretty, at this stage of the season, it's pretty cut and dry who our best 6 are out there at any given time. I'd say the top 3 are midfielders. I don't think Sicily's quite in the same form as last year. He gets close, but doesn't quite crack the top 3. Day has to be in calculations. Yeah, Nash, Newcomb, and Day, interchangeably perhaps.
What did you think of tonight's selections, Tim?
I've only seen the ruck pick, to be honest. So I think that was correct. It's very unfortunate with Max Lynch, obviously, but you just have to make a practical decision about that. And, at the moment there's obviously Meek and Reeves, but as we've seen, it doesn't take much for one or even both of them to be out for a couple of weeks. You need to plan for that.
Exactly right. It's exactly what I was speaking to before, Tim. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And, I don't think it necessarily means that, they've given up on Lynch or anything like that. You have to remember that there's only... when you take these picks, they're a short-term contract, really. They could persist with Lynch, but I think it is just in the immediate term what we're talking about, that insurance, having that backup.
Yeah, they've already put Ramsden into the team, and he
Mhm.
didn't look up to it. So, I think these two picks, although not exciting and not what I wanted, are quite logical.
Rucks are
Well,
sorry.
no, go
I was
for
going
it,
to
Tim.
say rucks are sort of like a goalkeeper in soccer. It's a specialist role, and if one or even two people fall over, you can really get found out.
Yeah, it's not a sexy selection, is it? The ruckman usually, and they can take quite a lot of time to develop. You're not going to see them in action. Not going to see the spoils of that instantly. But I'm quite happy with the picks. But Tiz, it leads me to wonder, what were you after?
I was after some little excitement machine in the midfield. I thought we would have picked up Stanley, who was a very good-looking player to my eye, but had come on leaps and bounds, and again, Freo taped one from Box Hill, and they got Switter there, who was overlooked for years at Hawthorn, so you can't deny him that, but he'll do well over there, I'd say. The other thing I'd say about picking up a ruckman in the mid-season draft is probably good because you don't end up taking one in the late 40s or 50s in the real draft.
Yeah, it happens to be a ruckman that we're intimately familiar with. He's been training with Hawthorn. Obviously had a serviceable enough audition to actually get the gig in the end. I think that's what we saw there.
Yeah, well, Ramsden and Tucker 2 years running.
Yeah, that's true. I think you were a bit harsh on Ramsden before, weren't you? I mean, he's had one game, and you've said he doesn't look up to it yet.
Well, he didn't look up to it in that game against the
Yeah.
Dogs, but they played through him and they made him look. They had English one out with him a couple of times. But no, I have full faith in Ramsden making it, but he's just a little too young. So bringing in someone like Ryan might be better.
Yes, well, Tucker, you mean, because Brian being the forward, who we haven't touched on at all.
No, but Ryan could give us a chop out in the forward line as well as doing something in the ruck. He's got a mature body there.
Well, the great thing about Brandon Ryan is the versatility. He's been playing forward at the Bull Ants. He's been really exciting there, really impressive form, kicking multiple goals from week to week. But
I love this, an average of 2.6 goals a game.
Yeah. For a team that's
not
not
3, 2.6.
For a team that's also not travelling amazingly well, the Bull Ants, not for the last 2 years. Ryan has been looking really impressive. And the fact is he can pinch hit in the ruck as well, and he can play as a defender. So I think we've taken a talent where, to my mind, I think we concentrate on his development as a forward. We nurture that. But, I mean, if we need to, it's right there. We can develop him into a key position backman. And that's an area that we need to focus on too. So not such a bad move. We'll get some of the listeners on the line. If you do want to throw us any curly questions or have your say on the mid-season draft or, anything else that might be happening at Hawthorn at the moment.
Can't think of anything.
Now, Tiz, it seems to be a habit with our podcast that after we release an episode, there's usually some big news brewing, and that was again the case this week. And I guess what I'm angling for is a bit of a vibe check. What's happening?
I'm wrapped for the former coaches, and that they finally get some breathing space. I know it's not over, and I know it's the AFL just sort of backing out of the whole shebang and trying to cover their ass before it goes to the HRC, as is being professed in the papers. But I'm pleased for. Certainly Fagan was very, very aggressive in his tone and staring down any kind of legal threat. So it sort of says to me that the history of those years, still under a cloud, though it be, is pretty much given back to us now. We don't have to worry, as much. Well, I certainly feel relief for those three guys.
Fingers crossed your reading on the situation is correct. I want to invite long-time listener Enns onto Talkback. If you're there, Enns, make yourself known.
I am. Hi, guys. Just a couple quick questions. With Brandon Ryan, how is that going to work with him playing for the Bullets and then for Hawthorn? I'm assuming he's going to be playing for Box Hill next.
I presume he'll line up for Box Hill on the weekend.
That's not bad for him. And the other question, I wasn't able to get onto the live link; it just wouldn't load for me. What's happened with Callum Brand? Did he get picked?
No, he did not.
Okay, that's
Which,
surprise.
yeah, I forecast that on this week's podcast that frankly, he's been one of the best players in the league, the VFL. He's been incredibly industrious week to week. Usually notching up 30+ touches, being incredibly influential, a match winner. I don't know. That would be bitterly disappointing for him.
Yeah.
He's looking to revitalise his career and get back into the top league. And you have to be wondering, if you're him, what more you can do. He's been very impressive.
He has, yeah. All right, thanks. That was all I wanted to know.
No worries at all. If anyone else would like to jump on, in fact, I think we have Patrick here. Please do request to speak. We'll get you on board. Fire away any curly questions you have for us. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
I was just going to ask, do you think the AFL leaving the sanctions open to us was just so Damo could still write something negative in the sliding doors this week?
Can I just jump in, Patrick? I think what you mean is, if the AFL leave the door open, I mean, look, he'll always find something. Even if it came down in our favour, he'd still be whinging on the same old track anyway, Damo, because that's just what he does. It's pretty easy.
Surely, considering the 3 coaches got exonerated, it means it'd have to at least be a fine at worst. Like, surely it takes draft picks out of the question or anything like that, you'd have to assume.
Well, I never thought draft picks would be in the picture, because that would that's more about on-field cheating or seeking to find an advantage against other clubs in the league. And Damo says that other clubs want us to be punished. That's his line at the moment. It would have to be monetary.
But what would the other clubs do then? If would it just mean that they wouldn't go do any of these style reports? And what would they? What would they say if Hawthorn said the same? If they had a report like this, you'd have to ask.
Well, if Hawthorn were to be sanctioned, I would, if I were Andy Gowers, I'd probably recommission a report. And
jeez, Christ.
Yeah, do it again, and get the AFL actually involved in the conducting of it, because they made no advances.
Yeah.
They didn't go and interview any of the coaches, and they made no advances on the investigation we had undertaken. So you just throw it back in their court that you do want to know, and if we're going to be sanctioned, we might as well find out what we're really to be sanctioned for.
I literally thought you were about to say we should at least get our money's worth.
And then you would throw it back onto them and tell them that they should be conducting this kind of investigation anyway, as part of their due diligence for player health.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the stuff that they committed to in their press release, one of our listeners, Ryan, ended up pointing out, shouldn't they have these mechanisms in place around Indigenous and First Nations people anyway? Why has it taken this for the league to get anyway? It really cast them as really out of touch, and as the authority, as the people leading on this matter. But I suppose I shouldn't be that surprised.
So we really they're not sharing their allegations either, the AFL, on what the club should have done. Because it's very difficult, because there are obviously people on both sides who have been hurt, and there's going to be no real development from here that'll satisfy any of those parties, and there's always the option to legal up for the coaches and the other side. So there'll be no winners out of this whole situation, and it all stems from the fact that it got out into the press and went public. Otherwise, it would have been handled in-house. But that's its own question, because when they tried to take it in-house, it still didn't work. So at some point, I feel like Hawthorn is a better run club than the AFL Commission is. But,
I know for a fact that a lot of people would dispute that, because so much criticism has come for Hawthorn's, air quotes, process around
and a lot of that is from never ask a question you don't know the answer to already.
Yeah,
that's the general theme behind that criticism.
But the people that level that criticism, I want to know how they might, what their suggestions are for how things might have played out a bit differently. Because as far as I can tell, they followed protocol. Am I correct in saying that?
Your hands are tied because the employees who had the allegations made against them had already left the club. And so you had to hand it up to the AFL, and they had jurisdiction over those other members, and they could have gone and found out what was going on, and etc. But as they were no longer at Hawthorn, they couldn't do much.
It just seems to me that the media was the defining factor in how things have played out the way they have. It has caused a monumental spiral out of control for all parties. That it was just needless, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the whole point was being able to reconcile with the Riolis, and I don't think we're any closer to that.
Oh God, no. That's where it started. This curiosity that Cyril Rioli inspired. It's maybe there's something worth looking into here. Well, yeah. Well, I think by the sounds of it, there is. It's just a shame that it played out this way. I don't think it needed to, but yeah.
Anyway,
I mean,
it's like tightrope walking. This stuff, Nick. It's not exactly enjoyable stuff, but it seems like it is coming to a conclusion, and I just can't see why that the AFL can take draft picks off us. And if they take money off us, well, hopefully they'll just give it back in another form like they did with Melbourne when they obviously tanked. And then they just gave a $500K check to Paul Roos to come in and fix the club.
Yeah, so it comes back around, is what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying they're not without... they're sly. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be draft picks either, because I think draft picks would denote, well, as a sanction, that speaks to some sort of, trying to gain a competitive advantage, and I just that is irrelevant here. That's not the realm that we're playing with. So I just don't see that being an appropriate punishment, and I certainly hope it doesn't come to that, because we need them draft picks.
And gosh, it was a welcome change to hear Kennett go on the attack.
Oh, really? Yeah. So you're telling me that you liked when Kennett spoke up?
I did tune in to hear what he had to say, and a lot of it held together quite well. But
I'll concede that. You know quite well that I'm not a massive Kennett fan at all. Some might say I'm the opposite.
But there were less grenades than I thought, to be honest. So, and then Gowers came out and he was strength with care, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
I saw the criticism that of Gowers' member email, he didn't say anything, and I just thought, well, what do you want him to say at this point? What are you asking for from the club's president at this point, other than to play a straight bat and everyone's hurt on all sides.
Everyone's just hoping this is the end here.
Which is true. Everything he said was true, but I don't. What are people hoping for? A bit more spice than that, something a bit more fiery. The club's not in a position to make those moves at the moment.
But if the AFL doesn't come out and put in some, oversights across all the clubs, it would be ridiculous.
We would love to hear from some listeners. If you have anything about the investigation, you want to ask us, anything about the mid-season draft, anything about Hawthorn in general. I don't know about you, mate.
Or how much you think we're going to beat Port by on the weekend.
Oh, at least 10 goals. Brandon Ryan to kick 14.
A mid-season draft debut. That would be fabulous.
You know what? It would not be the first time.
No.
We did it with Nuke, and that worked out pretty well.
That was amazing, beating Sydney as they were.
You know what's really impressive about Newcomb is that first game set the tone, and he's been remarkably consistent ever since.
Was it 13 tackles on debut? something like that.
14, I think
14.
That's the
Wow.
record. Yeah, 14 on debut, and in a winning performance as well. And that's really his trademark. This wasn't some sort of flash in the pan first impression where you're like, wow, this kid, and then a few weeks later the glosses come off. He's become essential. He's definitely, in top 3 calculation for the PCM this year. It's been quite something to watch.
And the reports are Seamus Mitchell will be right to go for the weekend, but I don't know. Are you sure about that?
What are we tipping, a late out?
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I don't know. Well, he wasn't on the injury list either. He's been participating in training fully. He's been kicking on both feet. He seems to be moving okay, so maybe he is right to go. We learned to cast a suspicious eye on the injury lists in recent years.
Is Luke Bruce just reaching for the calf at training? Something like that?
You're desperate, aren't you? You really want to see that in person.
I do want to see that in person. Yeah. Erin's listening tonight, but I think she's teased me for not going to the buddy game as well.
Which one specifically? He's had a few big games.
No, the one against Carlton.
That's right. Yeah. I think that from time to time.
Yeah. Oh, you lovely person, you.
Went out onto the ground.
Oh. I did it for Dunstall. That was pretty good. A couple of times.
All right. Well, you got that one over me. I clearly haven't done that. I've got a bit of Waverley Park turf somewhere still from back in the day, from the final game.
Yeah, I was there for that too.
That's not a tin that I want to open. I fear what might be inside. The
dust,
the stench, the horror. Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably dust.
So was that a commemorative tin, or did you just grab an Anzac Vicky tin and take it down for the game?
It was a Looney Tunes branded Daffy Duck tin that at one time had jubes in it.
Ask a stupid question.
I don't know what to say. It's just the truth. And ever since, because the jubes have long been polished off, that is housed from that day, from that final day at Waverley, the final game. It's encased some turf. And I think you might be right. I think it might be dust by this point. How many years has it been? Oh my God, jeez,
it's a lot.
It is a lot. What's your prognosis as far as the Port Adelaide game?
Oh, I think Sicily makes it very difficult. But Scrimshaw come into the lineup, and we play very well against Port. I noticed they took Quinton Narkle, so they wasn't very impressed with that selection. So maybe they feel they need Quinton against us.
Well, are we talking about Quinton the Difference Narkle?
Sparkle Narkle, yeah.
Sparkle Narkle, who was anything but against Box Hill.
He was desperate. I'll give him that. He was desperate. But
we had the same reaction when that pick went through. We couldn't believe it. I thought he was thoroughly average. But anyway.
Yeah, he's got a bit of X factor in the right side. But, yeah, when we went over to Adelaide, I enjoyed watching Port. So I think they play a good brand of footy. It should be quite a watchable game.
Yeah, did you enjoy watching Port in the moments you could see them through the blinding rain? That was atrocious weather.
Yeah, well, it was, that's okay. I saw Melbourne get beaten earlier in the day by Essendon, who just played better in the wet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, some of my Melbourne mates are getting really nervous now about how the season's going.
Yeah, as well they should, really. Yeah. I think we're a chance to at least be competitive against Port. I still think they're due a loss. They have to take their eye off the ball at some point. And you could imagine that Hawthorn sneaks up on them a bit and makes it a closer contest than what the home crowd might be hoping to see.
Yeah, I can see the midfield doing very well, but over there they're very good at Adelaide Oval.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be taking the odds. I think it's about $6 we're going to pay. So
you meant to love the game, not the odds.
Nobody is picking us, Nick. Who have you got Friday night, by the way?
It's been so many years that I now see the wind-up. It's a bit of a rope-a-dope, and I'm like, I see it, and I'm powerless to stop it. It's still going to happen.
No, it still works, though. It's still... it's Melbourne Carlton, and I'm praying you say Melbourne.
Yeah, Carlton's not getting the job done this week. I think they're in a world of hurt, and it's not going to end anytime soon.
Excellent. There's good odds on that one.
No,
you heard it here first.
I mean, here's the thing, listeners. He's not wrong. I cannot tip a Friday night to save myself. It's probably really good money if you go against me at this point. That's my track record. So
I'd love to hear from some listeners if they've got anything to say on if they're feeling relieved or if the media's gone. They've changed their tone. They've gone from coaches exonerated to Hawthorn looking at sanctions. So,
yeah, that turns quickly, didn't it? Yeah, we'd like to get some listeners on board. Whatever you want to talk about, really. It doesn't have to be the investigation. It doesn't have to be the draft. Could be anything, really. You can ask a personal question. Not too personal. Let's be civil. Let's be nice about it. To request to speak, and we'll get you on board.
Did you get those little personal Kleenex boxes that you could?
What are you talking about?
The AFL, you get a personal little plastic pack of. You can get.
Oh yes, yeah.
Did you give one to your girlfriend on the weekend after the Saints loss?
She was really good about it, actually. Really good about it.
You've got to have the banter ready. That's the perfect gift.
No, my banter game's strong, mate. You don't have an award-winning podcast like ours. There's not been any awards. There's not been any awards. No. I think you might have a text coming your way, by the way, if I had to commentate what's happening in my household.
No angry text yet.
Yeah, wait for it.
It's being typed.
All right, go on. We've got a bit meta now. Let's get Matt on the line. Matt's requested to speak, and I'd like to hear from anyone who's not talking about my girlfriend at the moment. So come on, Matt, away you go. Fire away.
Yep. How do you know I'm not about to talk to you about your girlfriend?
No, that's fair enough. You got me there. Jeez, look over my shoulder.
Yeah, just about the Hawthorn racism investigation. Once it was released into the media by ABC and Russell Jackson, there was just no chance for natural and fair justice to happen. And once Clarko and Fags and Burt were named, that's where the big issue was.
Yeah. I hope it was worth it. I mean, you talk about award-winning before. I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson was recognised in some way for his work on this. But I hope it was worth it because it stuffed everything. It stuffed everything for everyone.
That's right.
It threw the whole thing into disarray. It did nothing for the complainants.
Hasn't Rusty deleted all those posts he made about it as well? So he sort of pulled back because it just like he deleted all the posts he had about Shane Warne after his sad passing. So he does tend to he reads the winds, Nick. Winds of change. Russell certainly reacts.
Well, I gather you can delete what you want, but it can still be found.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the internet, basically. It was clearly, there's something to be said for priorities there, because the story's out there, but, I mean, look at where we are now. It's a complete dumpster fire.
It's very selfish journalism.
Yeah, well, I guess it really is, because it didn't do anything for anyone. Like I said, it's it's put everyone's noses out of joint. It's just muddied the whole process.
It's not just that he. It's not just that he printed the story. He printed the story without due process or deferring to Fagan and Clarkson for a comment. He didn't give them time. He's been criticised by people like Caroline Wilson for the way he handled that. And, a number of people have said that they wouldn't have gone to print with that.
Yeah. So do you reckon he'll lose draft picks?
Well, I saw that Shane Crawford retweeted something today that said, all the media people make these mistakes and they never suffer any of the consequences.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
I think
other media haven't gone out after him either. Like Damo hasn't gone after him.
No.
But he's gone after Hawthorn.
Oh, has he ever? About everything under the sun, he's gone after Hawthorn. But I think it was quite ironic that we saw even this week, inside the One Show, in fact. I thought it was really, really big of Caroline Wilson to apologise to Sam Mitchell and say that, look, she got it wrong and we're actually travelling along okay. But in the same show, her reporting on Patrick Cripps was just completely erroneous and false. That I think encapsulates everything. It's one step forward, two steps back. Bit of Paula Abdul for you.
Wow. So, Matt, are you feeling any relief from this week's revelations?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Fair enough.
No, because, nothing's resolved.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, nothing's resolved. No one can feel justified. No one can feel at peace.
Yeah, the way I looked at it was like, oh, great. Well, the AFL's exonerated them, and I'm glad for that. But that's a checkpoint. That's not the end of the game here. That's not the end of the story. There's still so many chapters to be written of this story. It doesn't really let anyone off the hook. It doesn't give anyone what they want. It more feels like the AFL taking themselves out of the pool. Like they're just like, well, we're not going to be part of this going forward, so you'll sort it out. And it's like, okay, great. I guess they will in a higher court, which it should have gone here to begin with. Like it just there was too much delay. They are going to take this to court, and that's how it should be. And the veil of anonymity has to be lifted. I think where we are now is where we had to be months ago.
The AFL seem to have washed their hands of it and dumped it back at Hawthorn.
I'd say it's a pretty good read on it. Yeah, anyone else that would like to jump in?
We're back in the two.
And one other thing on a football matter.
Yeah.
I think Blank and Mitch Lewis are our two most important players. They may not necessarily be our best players, but the way that Blank comes in,
the structure
frees up Frost and Sicily and Weddle, and the way Mitch has just straightened us up completely, given us a marking target, it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, of course, I'm a noted Mitch Lewis fan, so I think your listeners would be inclined to think, oh, well, of course Nick would think that. But you noticed from Mitch's return, there was just something in the structure like, okay, yeah, this looks a bit different. This works a bit differently. It works a bit better. And I think the same as Blank. I mean, the proof is in what happened with Sicily. I mean, when you allow that kind of game to happen, which is a match-winning performance, you know that something in the structure and the personnel has really come together well.
And we don't have a replacement for either of them at the moment. We don't have anyone else that can play a number one key forward, and we don't have anyone else that can play a number one key defender.
Can I turn your attention to a man by the name of Brandon Ryan? I'm not saying it happens immediately, but that's why it's a good pick. That's why Brandon Ryan is a good selection, because he is versatile, and I think there is the capacity, while he is in amazing form as a forward this year, and I think we should nurture that. I think the fact that he does have that versatility, and, if you do want an understudy to Blank, who admittedly is right at the start of his own career, but if you want some depth in that part of the ground, you've got an option now. You have a developmental pathway if that's the way we choose it. And I dare say, Cozzy was a bit the same. Cozzy can play forward, as we've seen. He used to play as a defender, and when we need him to, he can chip in the rough.
He was a dour defender, Cozzy.
Maybe that's what we need sometimes.
Patrick's, there's a chat that goes with this space, and Patrick shared a tweet from Paul Amy, who said that Brandon Ryan was training with the Northern Bullets tonight when a couple of teammates doing rehab heard he'd been drafted and raced onto the ground to tell him. He's now on the phone to Hawthorn. What an incredible evening for the man. And Josh Kazza has told us that regarding Ryan, he will play with us now, but he cannot be used against the Bull Ants this year.
Oh, that's all right. We played them, beat them, been there, done that. We move on. They won't be in the finals, so it's not even a problem. I like the comment below it, actually, from Molly Fudd. Hey, guys, I'm actually used to listening to your podcast at 1.5 speed. You couldn't talk a bit quicker, could you?
Are we talking quick, are we? Wow.
Anyone else that wants to jump on board as we head into probably the last 5-10 minutes of this Hawk Talkback, do request to speak. We'll get you on board to talk about really anything: mid-season draft, investigation, how Hawthorn's travelling at the moment. We have 2 games until the bye. How are we feeling about the journey to date? 2023. It's been a bit of a roller coaster.
Well, no expectations at the beginning, and I thought it'd be after the bye before we saw some good team play and some real ability to frighten opposition. But, it's lovely to beat St Kilda.
It's been a little while, so not going to argue with that. It was good to get back on the winners list against them. Here's a question I was mulling over right before we went on. Unsung heroes. Or even surprise packets for the first half of the year, Tiz. Do you have any?
Oh, goodness gracious.
I've put you on the spot, haven't I?
I've got to say, Hardwick has just got better and better as the year went on.
Yeah.
There were some questions asked about him earlier on. And then, with more sort of falling away on his impact in games, you've just seen the youth in the midfield just take up the slack. It's been very, very good to see. Even when Day gets rubbed out for a couple of weeks and we're getting no favours from the umps week in, week out, they just keep their heads down, keep working. Who did you have in mind, Nick?
I think Warple deserves a nod, to be honest. I think the likes of Day and Newcombe have overshadowed him because they're really quite young and exciting, and it's very future-orientated with them. But when you think about it, heading into this season, there's a lot of talk about James Warple and he needs to get back to where he was. Yeah, lots of pressure. And you'd have to say that, for the most part, he's been able to rise to the challenge. I still think his disposal's not crash hot, but he's an essential part of this team now.
He's doing the handball more often than not now. And I think, I'm just imagining this maybe, but since Mitch Lewis came back into the side, I think James Warple has greatly improved.
How do you figure that? What's your correlation there?
I don't know. I just think that... maybe he takes a bit longer to look forward if he imagines there is a target there.
Well, you know what? I constantly criticise James Warple for the hat kick forward, but it makes a huge difference if there's a target there to actually look after the footy, to take possession of it. You got a guy that can actually take a contested mark, which was a serious deficiency that we had for a long time.
One of the things last year and in previous years was Wingard's ability to hit Mitch Lewis from anywhere.
Yeah, now Wingard needs to find the footy. That's probably the priority there.
Yeah, but
there you
incredible to see. Yeah,
there's a curly question for you. Does Wingard get a game this week
against his old mob? No.
Yeah, well, he's right to go. So what is he doing? Is he playing?
Oh, yeah.
Not playing VFL.
Sub Bruce out for Wingard, actually. That's my thought on
that. So keep him goalless and then sub Bruce out. That's the plan?
No, just take Bruce out of the lineup and play Wingard.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah. Manage Bruce and then get Wingard in the line. I see. All right.
Yeah, I just want to see the 500, Nick, and I want to see Gunners run down and give him a high five, just like it's a grand final.
I was thinking to myself, actually, after the Marvel Stadium game against the Saints, that win, I was like, it's just good to have a win in Melbourne again. It's been a long time.
Oh, yeah, Tassie fans had it easy.
Yeah, exactly. They've seen 2 wins this year, and I was like, oh, that winning feeling in person again is nothing like it. Nothing beats it. We'll take some questions just before we wrap up. If anyone wants to jump on board, I think we actually got a message in the chat from someone asking if they could come on. Just request to speak, and then we can get you on, and you turn your mic on, and away you go. What else do we have here as I'm scrolling? Gunster says, if we can find a way to keep Aaliyah out of the game, we're a very good chance of knocking Port Adelaide off.
Yeah, they do generate a lot of attack through Aaliyah. But, he's not as good as he looks sometimes. Teams don't really put that much effort to him. It's, I don't know. They're a weird side because they look like they don't have the manpower in defence. But as soon as they get the ball, they attack very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're only putting 2 tackles on and it's just Bruce, we're going to find it difficult.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, anytime that's the case. I believe we've got Dan on the line. If you want to switch your mic on, Dan, and fire away with any question you have.
G'day, fellas. Great show as usual. I've got a statement and a couple of questions for you. So, first off, I personally would give Wingard a farewell game, and then I wouldn't play him again. Get your thoughts on that. He's definitely hasn't lived up to his ability. We know that his best is fantastic, but hit and miss for how often he's played a good game for us. There was a little patch at the back end a couple of years ago where he really tore it apart, but just not enough.
Yep.
And the questions for you on Cozzy, obviously he had a great game, although it was only 1 goal, a very important goal, but I thought he had quite a presence in the air. Do you think that will give him the confidence to become a regular part of our team? And the other question for you, how do we attract some good talent next year in the way of free agents? Is it purely money that we can offer? Not quite the destination club, I guess we once were.
Yeah, those are some fantastic questions. We'll tackle the Cozzy one first. I mean, I think we're all hoping that is the shot in the arm that's been sorely needed for Cozzy, because we know that the ability's there. We know that in his debut season that he was bringing a lot to the table. He was a genuine key forward target. I mean, we had the pleasure of heading down to for Tassie for our first podcast trip and seeing him tear it up against Adelaide. Even before that, I know it was only a pre-season game, but out at Arden Street, you could tell that Cozzy really had something as a forward target. That, for a myriad of reasons, has concealed itself. I think he's battled unfortunate injury and form, and then at times last year, I think he was played in the ruck out of necessity. And is this the moment? Is this the turning point? This 1 goal? Because I still have faith in the Lewis Cozzy combo. I think the Twin Towers up forward would be fantastic. It's just, can Cozzy be the other guy? Because I know that Mitch is the man. He's main event Mitch Lewis. Who's the second guy? I think there's still, that's up for grabs. I'd love it to be Cozzy because I think he's the one that has earned it the most, but he'll be surpassed if he doesn't keep on performing. But what are your thoughts, Tiz?
So McRae brought Cozzy into the forwards group, made him a forward, gave him all the space he needed, really built, and Craig McRae's obviously an excellent coach. He got confidence into Cozzy, told him he was a forward. Cozzy believed it. It was very difficult in our forward line earlier this year. I'm sure Cozzy started looking at his boots rather than at the ball, started worrying about his opponent. It was even harder for him last year as he got thrown into the ruck and things like that. And he's just been down on form. Now, if that wasn't evident on the weekend, I know he kicked badly in front of goal until it mattered, and then he kicked it, which was terrific. But he was getting his hands on the ball. He looked determined. I think Cozzy needs to think less about how he looks while he's out there and just see ball, get ball for a little while. But
is his potential to be like a Gunston type and get up the ground a bit?
Yeah, he's not fast, but he's certainly got an endurance. But the thing about Cozzy is when he's on, he's hitting guys and he's making his physicality felt.
Yeah.
And he just hadn't been doing that been trying to impact contests and things like that.
I think that's the thing that I've been noticing this year, or more recently, prior to him being called up to the senior lineup in Box Hill. I think he was starting to capture something in just simply giving an honest contest. He was halving contests, and to make it to the senior level, you probably need to do a bit more than halving contests. But nevertheless, he found himself against St Kilda in the lineup, and he was bringing that. He was competing really well, and I'm rapt that he got reward for effort right in the dying stages of the game. And, one of the shots that he had was really tough. You can't really begrudge him missing that. But when it came time, he really was able to tap into that goal-kicking nous, and we wait to see. I wouldn't take him out of the lineup this week. I'd keep him in.
But, I mean...
You need to follow this. You need to have faith that it's the turning point and put faith in that.
Well, I mean, they're putting pressure on Cozzy. I think they needed to anyway with Brandon Ryan coming to the club. Yeah. So, that's just how it is. They're not going to... Because it was pretty obvious we needed Cozzy a couple of times as a forward setup and that it wasn't working, but he just wasn't playing well enough to get a game. So now they've got another option.
There was a second question as well, I think, when it was speaking to how do we attract free agents? And, because obviously with everything swirling around our club at the moment, not necessarily the destination place and being, 16th on the ladder as well. I get it.
Mate, who doesn't want to live in Dingley? Come on. Go on, Patrick.
I was going to say we've all totally forgotten about it, and who knows if the AFL send us bankrupt before we can even build it. But there is Dingley we've got to remember.
Yeah, no, that's true. So when people are saying, well, not draft picks, anything but draft picks, whack us with a financial sanction, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking we need all those dollars and cents. This is a really important time for us. Even a financial sanction, I think, would hurt a bit.
Yeah, well, the Tasmanians are going a bit cold on the...
What the heck even does happen with the Tasmanian deal if the stadium falls over and they don't getting a team? Does it still roll over? Do we know?
It's open to being extended, so you'd imagine it probably would be because we bring a lot of money into Launceston. Yeah,
I imagine we just roll with it. But in terms of attracting free agents, I think there's still some appeal for playing for Hawthorn. I think Sam Mitchell being at the helm helps. I feel like every player that's come on board speaks, whether it's Meek or Amon, for instance, they are quick to speak of how impressive he is. And I think when you've got someone like that at the helm, it really helps in terms of just a sales pitch. Yeah, I want to play under this guy. I have faith that this guy can get the best out of me as a career footballer.
And he's got a lot of blokes that will vouch for him too. He's got a lot of runs on the board. You know, we play good style of footy. We're a decent club.
That's the other thing I wanted to speak to is the fact that in terms of a brand of footy, our identity for what we bring it can be exciting. It is electric. We're young. We're trying to bed something down. It's not always working week to week, but you can see what happens when we get it right. We can turn a game. We can boot 5 goals just like that. We can take the game on and win the match. That's something exciting to be a part of, frankly.
But we do have a lot of money to throw around in the cap.
Yes.
Could get interesting.
Yeah. And the final thing... please, Dan. Yeah.
Can I sneak one other quick question in? What's your thoughts on Denver Granger Barras? I feel like we need to give him a block of 6 games and see if he's part of our future, but we're running out of time.
Yeah. I'm always torn on that because, part of me agrees with that. You've got to give him a go to see what you've got.
Are you remembering Zach Dawson, Nick?
No, well, if he's not getting a go, there's a reason for it. You know what I mean? So that you can't just... Well, maybe you can as a developing team sitting 16th. Maybe you do just give him a block and go, at the very least, if we decide to get rid of him, at least he has a body of work. He has a show reel, if you like, to give to other clubs.
Yeah, he's kind of no longer a first-round draft pick as we sit, is he?
Yeah, no, he's not. I was just thinking that.
If you're saying we've got to fatten him before we put him to sale, I agree. But I don't think they do look at Denver, Granger Barassan think they don't want him at the club. I think I just wonder how they're going to get him the experience that he needs.
I saw someone talked about bundling him and
Brockman,
our young forward. It escapes me.
Brockman or
Brocky. No way should we let Brocky go. He's the X factor we need.
Yeah, well, I'm high on Brockman. It would just be a matter of whether it's Brocky who wants to go back.
True.
WA boys, so it could come to a stage where that sort of is out of our hands. But I don't begrudge Hawthorn fans being impatient at this point. He's a pick 6, all right, and he arrived at the club in 2020. We should expect more. We should expect to at least see him more. What are we doing? But I don't know. It's a real question mark, and is that one of the projects that Hawthorn has to consider, especially after the bye? Is get some games into him. Give him a go, because do we have to make a call? Are we gonna roll into 2024? How long is he contracted for? Is he through to the end of 2024? Does anyone know?
I believe he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the case, but even the idea of rolling into 2024 with Denver having sub 20 games and really not having much to show for it. I don't know. Something has to be done in that space. We'll take one final one, and that would be the question about Wingard, I guess. A farewell game for Wingard.
Well, he'll be given that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might do a bit of an Isaac Smith at the end of the year and head to a different club that has a window, and it might pay off for him. But as far as his future at Hawthorn, it just hasn't really worked out, and he can't be the priority for us at the moment.
Yeah, well, he'll be a free agent at the end of the year, and he doesn't want to get injured, and we don't want to necessarily give him games. So
yeah, it might be in the best interest of both parties to see that relationship out. I like him. He's just wildly inconsistent, and it's easy to get frustrated with not seeing his best. Last call. I reckon we're done here, Tiz.
Okay, can I just jump in with one last thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Just about Cozzy. I remember similar sort of discussions about Mitch when it was 2019.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, he's still young. We sort of forget.
We forget that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's only 22, and Mitch Lewis, I remember that taking him back to VFL to get his confidence.
Yeah, so that's a very good point, because I feel like Braden Ryan won't only be there to take Cozzy's spot, but also to take the weight of the pressure on him as well. Because it's far easier to be able to look at a bloke and go, all right, I need to be better than him, than it is to be, all right, I need to be what do I need to be to get in this side? I have to be everything, or do I just have to be better than that bloke? And it's a little easier mentally to go, okay, I just need to beat this fella, and I'm in the lineup.
Yeah, well, I just saw the same thing with Mitch, like I said, a few years ago, where he was sent back to VFL because he just didn't have any confidence, and he came back and he was better. And I think Cozzy's in the same boat. He just needs confidence.
Yeah, I believe in that. I look forward to seeing what he can bring against Port Adelaide. Like I said, I believe in the two talls structure up forward, and of course I do. I designed a bloody T-shirt for our podcast about those things.
Well, Mitch Lewis is only 24. He's still very young as well. So Braden Ryan comes in, and he's is it Braden or Brandon? Brandon Ryan comes in, and he's our oldest forward, isn't he? Tall forward.
He might be, yeah. The veteran forward taken in the mid-season draft. Well, there it is. We'll wrap up Hawk Talkback. An eventful evening. We got Clay Tucker, a ruck prospect, 18 years old. He's been with Box Hill the last little while, of course. Great to nab him in the mid-season draft. And the guy we just mentioned, Brandon Ryan, who's been on fire for the Northern Bull Ants, now officially a Hawthorn player. Everything with the investigation going on, I mean, we can't possibly hope to talk about that with any sort of closure, but watch this space. And, of course, we're playing Port Adelaide, I believe, on Saturday. It's Saturday 1:45, I believe, an away game. I'll just give us a quick plug for the socials. Obviously, you're here on Twitter. That's fantastic, our social media HQ. You can find us on Facebook as well, facebook.com/HawkTalkPod. We're over on Instagram. I think we're one follower away from 1,000 on Instagram. We're quite a young account over on Instagram, but if you do want to be that one follower that ticks us over to that milestone, we'd really appreciate that. And if you like what we... Much appreciated, mate. Thank you. My esteemed co-host, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you do like what we do, if you enjoy the show and want to support us, we'd really appreciate that. In doing so, you can get yourself some bonus content. Head to patreon.com/HawkTalkPod. That's patreon.com/HawkTalkPod for all the details. I reckon that's it. That's it for this evening of Hawk Talk Back. Although we've had some requests at the last minute. Do we let them in, Tiz?
Okay.
All right. This will want to be good. Oh, the pressure's on. The whole listenership is waiting with bated breath for Black Jaleel, I think it is, or Kajil.
No, you just call me Jaden.
Fire away, mate.
It's a bit of a long question, so you guys can head off if you want.
Go on.
I hope you've written it
I
down,
have.
Jaden.
I've been stewing on it for a bit. I was just going to say I'm pretty new to the into the footy world in terms of fully following Hawthorn again, because I was a bit of a bandwagon watching the 3-peat, and I kind of just forgot about it until the footy frenzy in 2020. So I was just wondering, in terms of contract, like in terms of Warple, do you think they were just waiting towards the end of the year to really discuss that and try to give him, like, you reckon he's doing a bit of Will Day and trying to give himself a better contract, or you reckon just at the moment the list manager and whoever does the contract's not thinking about it at the moment?
Well, I think it'd be similar to Day. I know Day's already signed this year. I was not expecting that. Honestly, I thought Will Day would drag it out and let the body of work speak for itself. But he clearly is a Hawthorn man and wanted to stay, and he got it sorted quite quickly. But if I was Warple's agent...
That's why we recruit blokes with either a family history of Hawthorn or they barracked for him as a kid. It's paying out now.
If I was Warple's agent, I'd be delaying talks as well, because, I mean, he's showing that he's recapturing something. I'm not going to say he's PCM form of what was 2019. Not near that. But he is showing his worth and that he is important. So I guess we'll wait to see what happens. I'd be delaying talks, is my point. But he is proving very important once again, is Warple.
That's fair enough, yeah, because I was just having a look at the contract situation we've got in terms of our players who are out of contract in 2023. It's actually a total of 15 players on our list.
Yeah.
And that speaks to if we weren't improving or if we weren't following the model that Sammy wanted, they could just hit reset again on a few players.
No, that should be the situation. I think this is a rebuild. We are trying to build something, and we're trying to work out the materials that are going to take us somewhere. You got to be flexible with that. You got to cut the players that you want to be able to cut, and you've got to hold the players that you want to be able to hold. So. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of work to be done there, but I'm happy with the contract situation at Hawthorn, and I don't know who will be the next domino to fall in terms of who we sign next, but yeah, it might be something for a future episode, Tiz. Might look into that.
That's fair enough.
We usually go through the list over the bye and talk about who's in trouble and who isn't, and who's likely to get extended, and who we need to keep, and who might be a really good free agent, or who we're going to pluck from another club.
That's right. Mid-season review coming your way over the bye, and plenty more, I expect. Got plenty up our sleeves for the Hawk Talk podcast. But for now, this has been Hawk Talk Back. I've done the socials. I've done all that stuff. I won't drag you all through it again. So that'll be it. We are a happy team at Hawthorn. Thank you, Tiz. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us tonight. We will catch you next week for a recap of the Port Adelaide game.
Go Hawkers.
Go Hawks.